And we're live.
All right. I'm looking at a Facebook post called Parenting Hacks. There are no hacks. Parenting takes hard work all the time and all of your money. Teenagers don't listen. This is your life now. Godspeed. It's a very positive outlook on a Wednesday. I'm like, dang.
I have a preteen who I feel like struggles to listen, so
I feel like somebody having a bad day on this post.
I just went, well, I mean, it's probably accurate.
Dude, you're the parenting guru, though. You're the...
Sure. If you say so.
I just shared this, and it's shared public. Shared to my profile? Does that mean it's shared to my...
Oh, well, I don't, who are you acting as? Are you acting as the church, or are you acting as Scott Wilmore?
I don't know. I'm switching to Scott.
So now you're Scott Wilmore.
See, I don't...
You know, this is our 13th episode, and you are still struggling to figure out.
I am so on the struggle bus, dude. I am the most non-technological. Like, we need to go back to the raise your flip phone.
I mean, I feel like you could still do that if that is the one you want.
No, see, this is what I did. I shared it.
Now share it.
Yeah, but see, I want to delete this one because I shared it.
Well, don't. I mean, it's okay if it got shared twice. Maybe we'll have 2 people watch.
2 people watch. Share now to your story. Share now public.
Yeah, I guess I could pull up your analytics. I feel like I looked at the analytics yesterday for Spotify, and it seemed like episode 2, so our second episode, was our most watched thus far, or our most listened to on our podcast side. It was like
what
episode.
What were we talking about?
In episode 2, I don't know. What were we talking about?
I have no idea.
It all kind of runs together for me, so I don't quite. I mean, I don't. I feel like we talk about everything, so.
I feel like I've shared this to my profile 4 times.
You have. I've gotten a notification that you have shared it.
Like, on my profile? No,
yeah.
Look, I keep sharing it on the church's profile.
See, it says Scott Wilmore just shared.
Oh, look, yeah, I hit it. Man, that's awesome. Good deal. All right. Keep cut. I got them for you.
Oh gosh.
But I'm not going to. I don't have a list of drinks.
List of drinks?
It's drinks.
Okay.
It is soft drinks.
Soft drinks.
Soft drinks. I feel like before we get into the contentiousness of the tax vote yesterday, we need to talk a little lighthearted and talk about soft drinks. Of all the soft drinks in the world, I'm not going to give you a list. Of all the soft drinks in the world, keep 3.
Keep 3?
Do we do 3 or 4?
Usually we've done 4.
All right, let's do 4. Keep 4.
That just makes it harder.
Cut 4.
Keep 4, cut 4.
Yeah, soft drinks. It
I
could
mean,
be any type of soft drink.
I grew up, we just called everything Coke, so.
Yes, Coke.
A Coke.
That is accurate.
I think the one I feel like I would have to keep first has to be Coca-Cola, the original. I feel like it's a safe one. It's one that I'm pretty happy that I get wherever I go. And, you know, McDonald's, it always tastes the best, but that's a different formula apparently. So,
what's your favorite way to drink a Coca-Cola? Is it out of the can? Is it out of a bottle? Is it out of? Is it over ice? Is it over bullet ice?
Like my preferred way is like a Mexican Coke.
Yes, in the glass bottle.
In the glass bottle,
oh, absolutely.
Over ice, in like a styrofoam cup.
Yeah, I would agree, but I would add Sonic ice. It's got to be over bullet ice if you put it over bullet ice. But there is something that tastes totally different about glass bottles. That's why, Kessler, I don't understand why you order glass bottles. I'm like, well,
there is something different.
Well, Sprite's the same way, and they have Fanta in it too. They get a bunch of them in it, but
sure.
Like the Mexican Coca-Cola and Sprite, There's just something that tastes better.
Well, it's the real sugar.
It is.
That's what it is.
It is real sugar.
It's kind of like if you get Dr. Pepper from Dublin, where it's made
Mm-hmm.
in Texas, and they make it with the real cane sugar.
Yeah.
It tastes completely different.
Totally different. I like it when you see it with the cane sugar
Yep.
on it.
Yep.
You don't see that out here.
No.
You know, that's a HEB thing too. You go to HEB
Yep.
and get all of the stuff with the real sugar, which
I had a roommate in college who was from just outside of Dublin, and every time he went back home, he picked up a case of Dublin Dr. Pepper.
Dublin Dr.
That's
Pepper.
it.
You been to the Dr. Pepper plant?
I haven't.
There are a vast array of flavors that they haven't put
Oh,
out
sure.
that you can only get at the.
It's kind
I
of
guess
like
they didn't make the cut or.
it's kind of like Bluebell.
Yeah, it's a lot like Bluebell.
Like I've done the tour at Bluebell and loved it, and they are legitimate in saying when they say eat all we can and sell the rest. Like that's 100% true. I remember you know the little wooden sticks you get.
Oh yeah.
I saw a guy eating a half gallon of ice cream with that little stick, and I was like, wow. And they just had coolers full of ice cream for everybody, and I went, this is, if I was to move away from ministry, I feel like Bluebell would be in my future.
Bluebell would be your future. It is the best ice cream ever made. My wife disagrees, but she's communist.
Well, she's
sometimes.
from the north.
She is. Yankees don't know how to eat.
Yeah, the fact that when they had their little whatever, and all of us were like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like, how will we survive?
They were bootlegging.
Oh, yeah.
Because they got like listeria or something in the plant.
Something.
And so they had to shut the plant down. And, dude, there were people bootlegging.
Oh, yeah. You could
on
get it.
Facebook. $100 for a.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
What's your favorite Bluebell?
Oh, I'm a homemade vanilla guy. Classic.
See, I feel like you're a classic guy. When you're talking about keep cut on
Yeah.
the soft drinks, your go-to is Coca-Cola. That's
would
very
be.
safe, very
It's
broad-based.
It's not. It's just one that I felt.
Classic vanilla, very safe, very
I
broad.
feel like when keeping the original Coca-Cola, it's the one. It is the safe bet. It wouldn't be my number one. Like it would be my number 4. But I
in
would
the
go
keep cut world.
in the
it's-
keep cut
yeah.
world. I went. It's just one of those that. It's a safe one. It's your solid left tackle you've had for 10 years.
Yep, yeah.
That-
Nobody pays attention to it. You grab
Yeah.
one, it's always good. It's
Right,
always, yeah.
right.
All right, what you cutting?
Cutting. I'm not a big fan, unless it came from Dublin. But I would have to cut Dr. Pepper.
I don't know that we can be friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Texas thing too.
It is. That's 100% true. Yes.
What you don't like Dr. Pepper?
I have not.
Ouch.
Here's. I think Dr. Pepper's okay. I just feel like it's overhyped for what it is. Like it's the I don't know. It's the Dak Prescott of sodas.
Oh, that is no doubt. Did you see? Speaking of, because we're a show about all things, sports included. Did you see Tony Dungy going off about the Cowboys?
No.
He was like, "Why do we have to talk about the Cowboys? They're not good. They exited early again. Why do we have to talk about them as if they're a powerhouse?" And I'm like, very valid point. They
Well, they
haven't
are.
won anything since the 90s, but everybody keeps talking about them like they're the...
I mean, they beat the Eagles.
Yeah, well, whoopity-doo.
I'm just saying. I mean, I don't necessarily. It's kind of like
Dak Prescott has
LeBron
lived up
James.
to my expectations.
LeBron James, and especially when he went to Miami, I feel like, because he went to Miami at the same time Tebow was in Denver, and I feel like that's all you heard about.
Yeah, it was.
LeBron in Miami, Tebow in Denver.
Yep.
And
That's
I
all it
went,
was.
that's that. I got. They must get paid a nickel for every time they mentioned Tebow or James, because it was.
I love me some Tim Tebow. I'm not a LeBron James fan. I do not think he's the GOAT. I think he's a great player,
Oh sure,
but I think he can rank in the top 10, but I don't think he's the
I
GOAT.
think he would do well, in Michael's era, but I think he would get outshined.
I do too.
I think he'd have his own set of rules, but that guy he's a massive individual.
He is. I think Michael Jordan's still the GOAT.
Mm.
I think LeBron's up there. If you ask my kids, I asked my kids who the GOAT was, and they said it was actually Steph Curry.
Well, of course they would.
Yeah, they're
A
big
guy
Steph
who
Curry.
almost got traded away because his ankles were so bad.
Yeah, Now I do think LeBron James is the GOAT at flopping.
Well, you
I
just
think if there's a fainting GOAT, I think he's the fainting GOAT of basketball.
you just missed Manu Ginobili in San Antonio, who was legitimately the GOAT at flopping because I feel like he got the call every time.
Yeah, he did.
Like he would be somebody, European, and he would know.
Bunny says you could be a Saints fan.
I
The
could.
Aints that had to wear bags over their head for how many years finally won one. Sean Payton. I followed
Now
the
in
Saints
Denver.
a lot. I love Drew Brees.
I think they have some of the best uniforms in the league.
They do. I like.
I
their
like their all
helmets.
blacks.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Saints, but no, it's not a team I would root for.
I would go to the Superdome and watch a game.
Oh, sure.
I liked Mark Ingram. I'm a huge Drew Brees fan because of what he did for his community.
Oh, yeah.
Cal Mara, obviously. But I've just been a Cowboys fan back in the day when you had two channels. Cowboys and the Braves were the only thing on TV, so you became a Cowboys and Braves fan.
Every time they try to upsell me on cable, it's always, well, the Cowboys are going to be on no matter where I move to. So
Correct.
I'll be good.
Well, Dak Prescott, he's absolutely lived up to my expectations.
Mid-round pick.
Yeah, he came from Mississippi State. He won 8 games at Mississippi State. He's
About normal.
He's above average in the middle tier of quarterbacks.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
he's your top third tier quarterback.
He's no Tony Romo, but
And that's
that was my favorite Cowboy was Tony Romo.
Tony Romo,
He was mine.
Troy Aikman.
Yeah, well,
But I was the '90s guy, so
You know.
I did like Romo. I think Romo was a great quarterback. Dak Prescott, when they drafted him, I'm like, what? Why?
well,
I don't-
you drafted him as a backup, hoping he could develop, and he did.
Yeah,
Obviously,
he
he's a
developed
starting
9
quarterback.
wins instead of 8 wins.
Well, they won 12 wins this year.
Yeah, and how far did they make it in the playoffs again?
They made it past round one.
Well, skibbity doo.
Just saying. There's a lot of teams that would be absolutely ecstatic about winning one round in the playoffs, and then
The Browns.
I mean,
the
feel like-
Browns would be excited.
I feel like if we would have gotten the San Francisco 49ers that the Eagles got, we would have faced the Eagles in the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I think the Eagles would have stomped us.
I don't think so.
How did you like that game?
Exciting. I'm glad the Eagles lost, but that's because it's the Eagles. But everybody talks about the controversial call at the end, but even the receivers come out, or the cornerbacks come out and said he did hold, so I don't know how there's any more controversy about it.
I enjoyed the fact that the Eagles players got on there and didn't whine about it like the 49ers players did.
Sure.
49ers players are still whining. Eagles got up there and said it shouldn't have come down to one call.
Absolutely.
And I do appreciate that. And Jalen Hurts does sound like a product of Nick Saban in his press conferences. I do think that Nick Saban makes them all take a class. Gene is saying that the Cowboys choke in the playoffs. They're 0-8 in the last 4 years. They're not actually
Gene.
0-8. They've won in the playoffs the last few years. But
Gene, the guy who doesn't watch NFL.
yeah, I was going to say, who is Gene's team?
Alabama.
Well, when you grow up in Alabama, Alabama is the pro team.
Yeah, see, I didn't grow up in Alabama. I was actually, when we were looking at moving here, I was surprised that there are no pro teams.
Did we get an XFL team?
USFL, the Birmingham.
Generals.
Is
Barons.
It Baron?
No, Barons is baseball.
Barons is
The
baseball.
Birmingham something.
Bulls is hockey, but it's something.
Well, the XFL's about
Knights.
to start again.
Maybe.
Did Birmingham get one of the teams?
Birmingham has.
Because they were in the original teams when Jim McMahon started the league way back in whenever. It was the Birmingham
Well, they
something.
they did have an XFL team. I know they have a USFL team.
USFL team.
Yeah, they have one of those, but I feel like it might be the Knights. I know the tickets are really cheap, $20.
The tickets are cheap. The games are fun. It's your semi-pro.
Yeah.
All right, we digressed into sports. Let's get back to the amazingness of
Keep
Cut soft drinks. You have kept Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
and you have to the to the shock of our entire listening audience,
Yeah.
cut quickly one of the Texas Foundation soft drinks,
It
Dr.
really,
Pepper.
it really is.
I'm
It hurts my roots.
I'm disappointed in that choice, but
I mean,
what's
well,
your next keep?
I'm gonna keep Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
Been a fan since I was a little kid. Always enjoyed it, and now I even like Mountain Dew Zero. I think it's good. Diet Mountain Dew I find tasty.
Do you like the Blast? Mountain Dew Blast comes out.
Oh, the
Taco
Baja
Bell?
Blast. Not particularly. I do like their energy one, whatever that orange one is. I think that
Right.
one's good. The orange and the red are good.
I'll tell you my favorite Mountain Dew drink, and I am a Mountain Dew guy. Rob immediately said Mountain Dew on it
Oh,
when
sure.
we're talking about them. I'm that way, Rob. I think Mountain Dew is the goat of soft drinks, and I personally like the Mountain Dew Code Red.
Oh, sure.
That's my go-to.
I think it's okay.
It's trickling into
But you
Alabama.
like-
I've seen it twice now.
You like Big Red though.
I love Big Red.
Yeah. See, I'm not a cream soda. Kind
Almost
of guy.
anybody that has drank Big Red here, because every time somebody comes from Texas, they're like, "Hey, what can we bring you?" I'm like, "Bring me a 12-pack of Big Red," because it's not here. And I like to pour it over ice cream and make a Big Red float, but it's just red cream soda is all it
Yeah.
is. And I'll be honest, who has the best red cream soda? HEB brand. HEB brand
Red cream.
red
soda.
cream soda is the best in the world. But Big Red, I've always loved Big Red. So when we go to Buc-ee's, I'm always get the largest cup that they have, Big Red guy, and I can drink it till the cows come home. But I don't. Somebody distributed it. It was in Walmart briefly,
Sure.
but I have not found it back since. But yeah, I'm a Mountain Dew Code Red guy.
Yep.
And I believe Mountain Dew, original Mountain Dew, is the goat of soft drinks. So you've kept Coke, you've kept Mountain Dew, you've kept two of the powerhouses.
Yep.
You've cut a powerhouse in
Yep.
Dr. Pepper. Who's your second cut?
See, this is where it starts to come down because do you start differentiating? So I kept Coke. Does that count? Keeping like a cherry Coke?
No.
Okay, that's
I think
okay.
I think Cherry
No,
Coke's different.
Now, now that you've differentiated the rules,
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut Pepsi.
You're gonna cut Pepsi.
Cut
I agree.
Pepsi.
I agree with that. Pepsi is really, really, really like
It's sweet.
syrupy. Sweet, syrupy. Like I don't taste that in the Coke, but when I grab just a regular Pepsi, I am like it tastes like the kind of when the syrup in the bag in the box.
Like I don't mind a fountain Pepsi. Like I think a fountain Pepsi's pretty good, but as far if it's next to Coke, I'm not choosing it.
Not choosing it, yeah.
Right.
I'm not a Pepsi guy, although Pepsi makes Mountain Dew or distributes or
Sure.
whatever. But yeah, Pepsi
Sure.
in and of itself, I don't walk into a gas station and say, "Let me grab a Pepsi."
Right.
So it's not
Right.
it's not a thing. All right, so we've kept Coke, we've kept Mountain Dew, we've cut Pepsi and cut Dr. Pepper. You've
Yep.
kept two powerhouses and cut two powerhouses.
We're gonna go a little obscure on this next keep. I'm going with like a Sunkist, like orange soda.
Oh yeah,
Like a.
but
And I don't know.
Sunkist, not Fanta.
That's what I'm trying to think. Would I prefer Fanta or would I prefer Sunkist? Man, the Mexican side of me, which I don't have any Mexican in me, I'm just married to one, wants me to keep
Who wants to go for Fanta?
Fanta. Because you can get it in the glass bottle. I don't know if I've ever seen Sunkist in a glass bottle.
I have not.
And so I
Seen
think
Fanta in a book.
I think in that way, I'm gonna have to keep Fanta over Sunkist.
Oh wow! But the orange soda.
Orange soda. Oh.
soda gets.
Yeah.
I will say I do like a Sunkist.
It brings back wonderful memories of summer growing up.
Yeah. Growing up, we had two gas stations in my hometown. One of them was Texaco right up the road, and they always had Sunkist beside Grapico. It was always like Sunkist and Grapico were the two flavors. I mean, there weren't 400 flavored drinks back then,
Right.
so. But it was always Sunkist and Grapico, and I love Sunkist.
We'd pull up to the taco truck and it would be like, what color of Fanta do you want?
Yep.
And so you could get green, purple, blue,
And they got
whatever, orange.
strawberry,
Oh yeah.
They've
got
got
all kinds.
strawberry, grape, and orange in a
Grape
glass
and
bottle.
knee-high.
I do know that.
Yeah, RC Cola.
I know,
with
man.
Peanuts.
You're talking about some old school. You could tell some old
Yeah.
school, deep South people. I was just having this conversation. I distributed for a company out of Springfield when I was driving a truck, and we distributed 7-Up and Miller Lite were the two branches of it. But that 7-Up brand underneath it carried RC Cola.
Yep.
And when I walked in the first day in the warehouse, I'm like, holy cow, I haven't seen RC Cola. Like,
Yep.
people still drink that. And
Oh,
they
yeah.
were like, yeah, you'd be shocked. And it was like RC Cola Diet Right. Do you remember that ever?
No.
It is like
Diet Right, RITE.
RITE.
Yes, I do remember that.
Diet Right. And they had several flavors. But then they had all the obscure, they had the Big Reds. And
Oh, yeah.
it was kind of more of like all the niche-y ones that Coke and Pepsi don't carry. But so you're keeping
Coke, Mountain Dew, Fanta, orange.
Fanta Orange.
Fanta Orange.
And we've asked Dr. Pepper and Pepsi.
Yeah.
What's your next cut? Grape Knee High.
I mean, if I had
That's
to
fun.
cut one, like one that I've only had it in Alabama, and I just went, why would anyone ever drink
I know
this?
what's coming.
Grape-A-Co.
Grape-A-Co. I knew you were going to say that.
It's basically fizzy Dimetap.
Grape-A-Co over vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, people say that, but I don't know, man. I don't get it.
You don't
Doesn't
get
make sense. Doesn't make any sense to me why anyone would ever drink Grape-A-Co.
I feel like people who come from other areas, because it is a very, like,
I've
Alabamian.
never seen it before until I moved to Alabama.
You can find some in Georgia, Mississippi, places like that. But,
Yeah, never seen it before.
yeah, it's.
But
it's
I see it all the time now. I go-
definitely an Alabama thing.
And I mean, they got it in like 2 liters and 6-packs of bottles and 12 packs of cans, and I just go, where did this even come from?
It's a great Dimetap. I knew it was coming.
It's
I knew it was coming.
fizzy Dimetap is what it like. It would be one of those things that reminds me of childhood, and watching Bob Barker after I've taken Dimetap because I was sick. You know.
That's quite the comparison.
But it's fizzy.
It's
Like,
it's a fizzy cough
It's a
syrup.
fizzy cough
That
syrup.
makes sense.
Like I don't Grape-A-Co. I don't understand.
All right, you got
Okay.
one more cut. I'm gonna go
One
back to
more
the cut.
cut.
I'm gonna leave you one more keep, but I want to go back to your fourth cut.
Yeah, the keep is easy for me. The cut,
So you've
One-
cut Dr. Pepper, you've cut Pepsi,
You know,
you've cut Grape-A-Co.
it's one of those.
Schweppes. Shut up, Gene.
I'm,
Schweppes.
I'm gonna cut root beer.
What?
I'm cutting root beer. I have to cut something.
Even root beer in a bottle, even
I
good
have to-
old fashioned,
Yeah, I have to cut something.
Oh my gosh, I thought that
And-
would be a keep, not
Well, it was between. So I guess if we went 5 to 5.
Barks root beer.
Yeah, so I'm a ginger ale guy, and I wouldn't cut ginger ale, but it's not going to be in my top 4. Root beer is not going to be in my top 4 either, so I got to cut something. It's got to be root beer. I'd keep ginger ale before I kept root beer.
Oh man, see, I'm a Barks guy, and I'm also a A&W.
I like making pulled pork with root beer,
Yeah.
but it's not one of those things that I go, you know what,
Have
I
you
want
ever
to.
poured root beer on your brisket?
No.
It's like pouring a Dr. Pepper or
Sure.
a Coke on. It's just flavor. But I came across a recipe once that you poured root beer on your brisket.
I believe it. I've done it I've made many a pulled pork
Yeah.
with root beer.
It's so much better when you pour like a Coke or something and pulled pork.
Yeah.
All right, what's your final keep?
Cherry Coke for me.
Cherry Coke.
Always been my favorite. If I can find it on tap, I'm excited. One of the reasons I enjoy Checkers is because they have Cherry Coke on tap.
There
So,
you go.
there you go.
My wife is a huge Cherry Coke. She'll ask for the Cherry Coke fountain. She loves the fountain.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And she's
Now I like Cherry Coke. I don't like getting Coke and then they add the artificial cherry into it. No thanks.
So you're not a Sonic. Like you go
I
in
don't
and you
like
get them and
Cherry
put
Coke
the-
at Sonic because they just put cherry in it.
See, I'm
it's
a
not Cherry
vanilla
Coke.
guy.
Mm.
And I saw some not too long. I guess they still
Oh, yeah.
make it. But I like vanilla Coke. The only disagreement I have in you on today's Keep Cut world is I would not cut Dr. Pepper. I would cut 7.
Yeah, Sprite would be.
Yeah, I like
Sprite would be-
I
well,
wouldn't
yeah.
keep or cut Sprite. It's one of those things that
Lemon lime would be a cut for me.
Yeah.
Like,
Sprite
but
is
I would keep ginger ale over lemon lime.
Yeah, I'm not a 7-Up fan. Like my mom would always, if you got
Oh,
stomach sick or
yep.
whatever, she'd go get 7-Up, and I'm like, give me some Sprite. 7-Up's
No,
like flat.
ginger ale is where it's at. Like that.
Ginger ale, I can't drink ginger ale.
I love ginger ale. Used to keep it in the fridge all the time, but it got harder to find and harder to find. So, especially because I like Seagram's ginger ale, which is made by Coke. I don't like Canada Dry as much,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, Seagram's ginger ale, which is really hard to find.
All right, so yesterday,
Yep.
and I'm going to be careful. I'm assuming that your wife is not watching today.
Probably. Well, she could be.
She is in her office.
She tunes in every so often.
Does she? She
I
is,
don't know if I would say she's in her office angry. She's probably
frustrated.
Mm,
What would be her word this morning when she got up and saw the final result?
Well, she saw it at 7:30 last night, so she looked it up. But frustrated would be a good one. Her at work today, she's feeling nervous.
Because she got some crackheads who went too far with it.
Well, there was a lot of.
Angst.
It's not that there wasn't any direct threats. It's like they danced around the bush.
Yeah.
At least that's the way she read into it, and said she was just nervous about work in general today. So,
Well,
which
I think
we've had that, which she's been in since we've been married. She's been a teacher or a principal, and there has been many a days where she goes, "This one makes me feel really nervous."
Well, I think anytime it comes to politics, in today's culture, I would say since probably hanging Chad of the Bush era, when Florida was up for grabs and they had the hanging Chads, and it was Al Gore and George Bush. I would say that to me is when I remember, because I remember Bush Sr., I remember Reagan and Clinton. I don't feel like any of those were like this bitter,
Sure.
divided. Like, I mean, you obviously had Republicans, you obviously had Democrats, you've always got your Libertarians that screw up the election in one direction or the other. Your Green Party fringe, but by and
Sure.
large, nobody, I mean, it just wasn't, people were passionate too, but they weren't. You didn't have to hate somebody because of their viewpoint. It wasn't, you never felt like, and I remember I worked at a steel mill up in Iowa, Gerdau Steel, and it was John Edwards, of all people, was running.
Oh yeah.
And I was from Alabama, conservative. It would take a lot. I'm not a Republican. I think the Republicans have a lot of issues that I don't line up with. But
Politicians have a lot of issues.
politicians have a lot of issues. But I can't bring myself to vote Democrat. However, if there was a Democrat that aligned with my beliefs, I would. So I'm an independent. I'm a true independent. But I remember getting out of my truck and being bombarded. It was big union, huge union country, and
well, yeah, up there for sure.
they were pushing hard, for that. And I'm like, I'm not voting for them. I mean, I got people got in my face. They were very aggressive about it, and that's when I remember going. It's turning a little bit.
Sure.
It's not just, hey, it's your civil right to vote and go vote. It's turned into us versus them, and the other side is totally wrong. Neither side could possibly be right.
Right.
And animosity is growing into a violent tendency, which is what I think this election even, and I've been kidding around with your wife.
Oh, sure.
I've got my opinions, but
Well, she said you guys could be friends as of 7:30 last night.
well,
I
I'm glad
asked.
because she pretty much she's talking to me for the last 4 days.
She has.
But
She has.
again, you explained it in 2 minutes, which made me go, well, I probably would vote for that. But I never heard that one
Never
time.
heard it.
Not one time did I hear that
Sure.
the tax was going to enhance the security at our
Sure.
Not one time. But we could look at the metrics of it. In the article I read this morning, the county school system saying, well, people didn't know.
They didn't.
And they were misled by the group that wanted to know. And
They read the information that was in front of them, and that's what they did. And I told Claire that. I said, whoever decided that they wanted to vote yes on this did a terrible job of telling us why it was important.
yes, the
Absolutely
messaging.
terrible job.
We had this conversation yesterday. The
Yep.
messaging was
Awful.
I didn't hear anything. I didn't see one single vote yes sign
No.
in any yard.
No.
And I live out in the north side area. There was a lot of vote no's. And my wife asked me how I voted yesterday. I said, "You're out of your mind if you think I'm answering that question." But
Yeah. Paisley asked me how I voted, and I said, I'll tell you that I voted, but I'll never tell you. It's the same with presidential elections.
Yeah.
I'll never.
that's me.
I don't ever tell anybody how or who I voted for.
I've actually written in a couple of times. I
Oh,
think
sure.
it was Romney and Obama. I literally wrote in Nick Saban. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. Didn't like either one of them. But at the end of the day, the messaging sucked.
Sure.
Like, all I heard.
It makes you think of the church and how people are so offended of the church, and it's because the message is great, but our message sucks.
Yeah.
Like, our messaging and our outreach suck.
The messaging is we hate everything and
Yes,
everybody, and that couldn't
absolutely.
be further from the truth.
Correct.
We do stand on truth. The amount of feedback from this past weekend's message is truth and grace. It's same message
Sure.
that we have preached. I mean, how many times have you and I done that one? That's one of those I go, it transcends Texas and Missouri, but
You know, I was thinking about it, and I go, I've worked with you, I guess, coming up on 10 years, and it all has started running together, especially when we start discussing sermon series and things like that, because we start going, well, didn't we do that one like 6 months ago? And it turns out it was like 6 years ago. Or
correct.
something along those lines 6 years ago. And you just go, but yeah, truth and grace, it hasn't changed since the year zero.
No, it
And
hasn't.
so,
Well, I find it interesting that
well, I guess technically it did change in the year zero.
in the year zero. Well, I find it ironic that John, when he's trying to describe God, basically,
Sure.
he's in that first chapter. He's trying to put into words who the Savior of the universe is, and it came with a full measure of truth and grace. But I do think that the messaging of because again, the media likes to spin and it likes to create controversy because controversy is what draws an audience. And I believe this right here. I believe 80% of Americans are what I call kitchen table Americans. They don't. You've got a fringe far left. You've got a fringe far
sure.
right. Both of them are extremely loud and extremely stupid. They are, but they scream loud, and so people hear it.
Yep.
But 80% of Americans want to get up, raise their family, their kids to get an education, and for their kids to have a life a little bit better than they had.
Absolutely.
And they want to be left alone.
That was one of the things my dad always preached to me that I've always remembered, and it was on parenting. And he said, if you can be, he always said, I'm a better dad than my dad was. And if you can be a better dad than I am, we're going to break generational curses.
Oh, wow.
And it's always stuck with me.
That's great parenting advice. Just be better. I think that when it comes to politics, you're right. Like the church, we stand up, and I've got an article pulled up because I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
It's a Carrie Neal Wolf email talking about pastors should stop talking about these things. And I like Carrie Neal Wolf.
I do too.
And even in his thing, he said, many of you are going to disagree with me.
About 90% of the stuff he puts out I like, and there's 10% that I go, it's a stretch.
I think part of that is the problem. And so I disagreed with him on it. But it's a good article.
Sure.
And I understand where he's coming from. But when you sit there and you look at the messaging of this tax deal,
Oh, yeah.
all I heard
Yep.
was that it was for improvements. There were about 10 different things. They couldn't tell you what order they would be done in or when they would be done, just sometime over the next 10 years.
Sure.
So your school district which if you're voting for it, you're voting for the whole county school system, right? But your school district may be the 10th one in line.
Sure.
And by that time, you may not have a kid in school.
Absolutely.
Right? All I wanted to know is what order.
Sure.
Like, just tell me what order. Well, we can't put that out. And I'm sure there's reasons, but I'm like, so you're going to come to me and ask me for money and not give me the what you're going to do with it and the timeline.
Sure.
Well, over the next 10ish years. Okay. Well, in the next 10 years, my last child will be a,
Senior?
no, she'll
Yeah.
be a junior in college.
Yes.
And I'm like, so by the time you get around to our school district,
Yep.
well, that shouldn't matter. You should just, I've never not voted for an education referendum like you. I've never, like, I'm all for
Well, and it
helping
was-
the schools.
That was one of the biggest differences between here and Texas. This is the first time I've ever seen it done this way. In Texas, we had bond elections, and they said we're getting this bond for this project, and we voted on the bond. Like, hey, yes,
Yep.
go get that bond, use it for this project. But here, it's different. Hey, we're going to raise your taxes, and these are the projects. Which I go, okay, makes sense. We're going to use these to go get bonds too, for these projects, and I just went, okay.
Well, I think that with this tax, when you hear there's an arbitrary list and an
Mhm.
arbitrary timeline,
Mm-hmm.
it may or may not benefit your school in
Immediately.
the time that your kid is in
Right.
school. You know, you start hearing these things and you really start to go, their messaging just sucked.
It was terrible.
In 5 minutes yesterday, you said, well, it's going to help improve the security. And it wasn't until the 5th robocall last night that I actually heard something about it
Yep.
will increase the security of all of our schools. And I'm like, had
Well,
they
like-
just came out and they said, hey, we're raising this money so that we could put officers at the door of every
Right,
school
it was even-
to secure the school.
Claire even told me yesterday that part of that money, I don't know if you've been to NIS, but they have like that 2-door system. You know, you walk in the one door, there's the office, and then you have to get buzzed through the second door. Part of the money was going to be spent to do that for every school.
Yeah,
And I went, oh, that makes a ton of sense.
makes a ton of sense. But who put that out?
Who put it out? I didn't hear it until 7:45 last night when Claire told me, and I was
Well, I
like,
heard it at 10:40 this morning after the
Right,
vote. Again,
right.
the messaging sucked. And then there's the side of it that I fall in, and this is where Claire got really frustrated. And I did read, and again, I had the copious amounts of text and robocalls yesterday. One of them said that don't believe the lie that we have money available to spend and we're just not spending it. That is a true and a false statement.
well, when it comes to educational finances, they have many pots they can pull from, but those many pots can only be spent on certain projects.
Sounds to me like we have a political leadership
Absolutely.
problem.
100%.
I have an article that I pulled up, and I stayed out of it. I didn't put my opinion on social
I did
media.
not stay out of it, and I should have.
Yeah, I did not want to lend my, and I had a few people ask me. They were like, "Would you put something out?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, because this is local politics is where you want to talk about really alienating some
Yes.
people. Like everybody knows where I stand politically on the big stage.
Sure.
I think they know I'm one of those Tea Party right guys, but when it comes to local politics, I play that one pretty close to the vest.
Sure.
Because you never know. But I heard a lot of conversations in the basketball court stands,
Yep.
and I predicted, based on the conversations I was hearing, that the vote would turn out like it did.
I thought it would be closer.
It got the yes vote. What do they even call it? They're calling it some kind of like token or credit or I don't know. They're not even calling it a tax. They're
Well,
saying
they're
bids.
the mills or
Mills.
mills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First off, nobody knows what a mills is.
I'm sure they just have to describe it that way because that's
I had to
just how
ask
it is.
Claire. I'm like, what does that
Yeah, I
even
know.
mean?
I still don't understand.
But at the end of the day, it wound up about as close as I thought it would be, just from the conversations I was hearing. I didn't
Sure.
hear anybody, not one person outside of somebody who worked in the school system.
Absolutely.
And I feel like they knew what was going on. They knew what it was for. But whoever's over the messaging of it, they need a new press secretary.
Yeah, I asked Claire about it, and she said, "Well, you got the email months ago that this vote was coming," and I was just like, "Did I?" Because I feel like I read a lot of the educational stuff that comes through, because it's important to me. I have a wife, I have 2 kids in the educational system, so I try to keep up with it. But she said that, and I said, I don't feel like I've seen anything explaining what the benefits were.
Well, I would like for somebody to explain to me, not in the Tuscaloosa County system, but just in the state of Alabama. There's an article out that
Yeah.
the state of Alabama is trying to refund or figure out what to do with $2.6 billion sitting in an education fund in the state of Alabama as a surplus.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you just give all but
Divide
500
$2.6 billion into however many counties and let them spend it on whatever the heck they want.
why
or
wouldn't you
put-
just say, hey, we're going to keep 0.6 and we're going to divide the 2?
Even if you kept $1 billion, you could put the double door system. You could put an enforcement officer at every single campus. You could repair, like the amount of stuff you could do with $2.6 billion. But we can't touch it for repairs or apparently textbooks either.
There's a weird. It's weird. She was trying to explain it to me yesterday, and it frustrates me. Like, and I get frustrated listening to her talk about it. But she even went, this is why I had to take in college. I think she took 4 different classes, 2 in her undergrad, 2 in her master's program, dealing with school finances or educational financing because it was different. Even more so the fact that she had to write a check for something, and the way she could code it was different from the way that the librarian could code it if she was to write the same check for the same thing. And I was like, how does that make any sense?
It's government at its finest.
Well, it's even, we have to, since she works in education and now she is an administrator, we have to reveal all of our indebtedness to the government so that they can make sure we're not siphoning money. That was a new one for us. Like, we got a form, and it was going to be $1,000 fine every day we didn't turn it in, talking about our total indebtedness and who we were indebted to. So, like our house and our cars, credit cards, anything like that.
Seems a little big brother-y to me.
It was a little bit surprising. I was like, this seems a little overreaching to me.
Yeah.
But I go, it's not like you have access to billions of dollars, but yeah.
Well, it's like, with the church finances and church funds, I'm totally removed from that system.
Absolutely.
For that reason. I can't sign a check. I
Yep.
don't. People walk up and try to hand me cash in the sanctuary and say, hey, could you put this in? I'm like, nope, I go find an elder, find a deacon. But I get I love the system of checks and balances that we have. I'm not involved in that in any capacity. Couldn't get to it if I wanted to. But they're not asking me what all of my debt
Sure.
income is.
Sure.
That's a little bit government overreach if
Yeah.
you ask me. But
I go, they know you're just a vice principal at a elementary school, right?
yeah.
And she
right.
was like, yeah, but apparently every administrator has to do it. And I was like, this is really surprising. And we
Well, I
have to,
feel like the reason they had to do it is because somebody figured out how to siphon some money off of there.
oh, sure.
And,
At some point, somewhere, somebody said,
I mean, you look at Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
They've got the mob running their state, and several of their guys have gone to prison for that kind of stuff. But my issue again is, who is our state legislator in Tuscaloosa? I don't even know who it is.
well, it wouldn't be, she just got it. I guess that's our senator, was Katie Britt.
Yeah, she's. I'm talking local. I'm talking state politics. Katie Britt's our
Yeah,
national
national.
one.
I don't
Does his
honestly
name
know.
start with an A or something? I don't even know who it is. Every teacher, every administrator, every parent who wanted to vote yes should be getting a hold of that guy
Absolutely.
and blowing his phone up and making sure that guy, if he cannot procure funds that are already in the education fund that we've already been taxed on, like, what's the point of that fund?
Right.
It's for education. get them to spend that money.
Well, it's-
That's my frustration with it. Again, I'm not going to tell you how I voted. I do like the fact that it was going to put security guards at the door.
It's state governments telling local governments how they can best spend money. But I just go and that's always been with politicians. You go, any president who's ever been elected, I go, there's no way they haven't lived as a middle class or a lower class, financially struggling, remembering the dinner table or any of that other junk. I go, it's been 60 years since you've had to deal with any of that. So,
well, and it's yesterday. I went to the store and I told Cassie I bought her some groceries. Not much. Not like, I didn't walk out with a buggy overflowing or anything. As a matter of fact, probably 8 to 10 bags,
Sure.
and it was $180.
sure.
No Tide, no toilet
Oh, yeah.
paper, no. It was just.
Mm-hmm.
But
They don't know those struggles.
eggs,
Oh,
a
gosh.
dozen eggs, has now surpassed in cost a pound of meat.
What were eggs yesterday? Did you look?
They were.
I haven't looked at
it
eggs
was
in a while.
$14.95 for a 60 count box
The
that
fact
I bought last week, but I don't know what they were yesterday. But I didn't buy it.
the fact I can get fresh eggs from any of the farms around here is for cheaper than what I can get them at the grocery store tells me a lot, because that used to be a luxury. I've always enjoyed farm fresh eggs. I prefer them over store-bought eggs. But when you looked at cost, you went ham, spending $4 on a dozen eggs versus $1.50 for a dozen, And so I used to buy farm fresh for me to eat, store-bought for us to bake.
Yep.
And now I go, I'm going all farm fresh for everything.
Well, this just re-solidifies. I'd like to talk to the elders here at the church, and I would like this spring for us to have a Saturday farmers market and food truck every Saturday. If you just want to come and show up and
Oh,
sell
sure.
your stuff, and
It would
you don't
be-
have to pay anything because we got a parking lot.
Man, we grow a ton of, Claire and I have started growing a lot of stuff, and, she really likes zucchini and I hate it, and so I'd happily bring some zucchini up here to give away.
Well, like the amount of okra that we had last
Yeah.
year, I couldn't grow a freaking tomato, but the okra went
Oh man,
berserk.
we had a ton of cherry tomatoes.
And the people, I'm like we're trying to give it away.
Yeah.
I'm like, please take the okra. And people are like, do you know how expensive this is? I'm like, no. Do you know how much we have? Take my okra. What I would love to do is something that we had in abundance, like an okra, is to find somebody that had farm fresh eggs and say, hey,
Make a trade.
I'll make a trade with
Oh,
you.
sure.
I'm all about the barter of fresh, and there's people that grow stuff better than others, like y'all's zucchinis and cucumbers were great.
Yeah.
The only thing that popped up good, we had watermelons that sprung out great, but then they only grew to about
Like a personal size.
like a personal size, and they were supposed to be the big boys, but it's like they all stunted growth somewhere in the process. So
Yeah, I was expecting a lot more peppers in the summer, and they ended up coming right before winter hit.
Yes.
Like right before our first freeze,
Yep.
and then I got a ton of peppers.
I'm doing all mine above ground this year. I'm
Yeah.
over the weeding.
Wow.
I'm over that. I looked at your above ground, and I'm gonna roll with some boxes
Yep.
and see if I can't
Oh yeah.
do that a little bit better. But groceries are absolutely outrageous, and according to our government, everything's fine. Everything's come back
Sure.
down. There's no inflation, but it's like you said, they're not out buying
No.
food. There are a lot of families right now with good jobs.
Oh yeah.
Two working homes that are struggling to make ends meet because of the food prices versus the
Oh, sure.
electric bill versus fuel prices. I'm telling you, last 2 weeks ago, I told my wife, I said, there may be a couple of work from home days until gas goes back down or food goes back down.
Yeah, I don't know the last time I filled up my truck. I usually I'm going to put 20 or 25 in because I have no idea what it's going to look like next, which I guess I should fill up if I don't know what it's going to look like next week. But, I'm hoping it comes down next week when I can put a full tank versus under a half a tank. But
Well, I had a house payment in fuel last month. It
Oh, yeah.
was insane.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane. And then the grocery bills are just
Well,
skyrocketing. I'm about to go buy a cow and
sure.
do that again, I think. But it's outrageous right now. And I think people are really struggling. But your statement that they don't know because they haven't bought groceries.
When's the last time? When's the last time any senator or, and I go maybe not locally, but in Congress or in the Senate, when's the last time?
They had to go out and buy groceries.
Yeah,
And they make $200,000 a year.
absolutely.
So,
And I guarantee at every one of their meetings they get served lunch. That's not coming from their,
oh, yeah,
you start going.
absolutely. I just think that if an entire county got a hold of their state rep
Oh yeah,
and started screaming and said, we're going to make a concerted effort not to vote you back in.
oh
Because
sure,
in theory, they're supposed to be the voice of the people. Are they hearing from the people?
right.
My thing is, okay, now that we've lost, and I read the article said there was no backup plan. There is a backup plan. You get a hold of your state rep,
Well,
and you blow his phone up with phone calls.
oh yeah,
Not just, dude, I'm sure I just got put on somebody's list. You blow up their phone is not
with
probably great
phone
terminology.
calls, yeah.
With phone
Not
calls.
this nowadays.
You make a concerted effort. You do petitions. You get a hold of them, and you say, "Hey, we need out of your $2.6 billion, we need the 0.6
Sure.
allocated so that we can put security officers at the doors, so
Yeah.
we can put 2-door systems in, so that we can make minor roof repairs. Like Walker's got a roof leak and they can't get anybody to fix." I'm like, dude, I don't know how the process goes there, but sometimes you just get up on the roof with some tar or some rhino line, and
There you go.
you got a bunch of contractors as parents. Ask one of them to fix the hole.
Yeah.
But there's so much red tape that
Oh, yeah.
then they get in trouble for that because you didn't do the procurement. It's
Right.
stupid. It's stupid. But it was an overwhelming. I was not shocked because all I had heard was no's talking, but the level of 80 to 20,
Oh yeah.
there's not arguing that.
No.
There's, okay, the people have resoundingly spoken.
Correct.
However, off vote, off cycle, only 14,000 people out of 250,000 people voted.
Correct.
So NAACP was wanting them to boycott it.
Oh yeah.
I made that comment yesterday because Hillcrest is having a issue with some walkouts and stuff like that. So the NAACP, that's the word I'm looking for. Did I say the NCAA boycotted?
No.
Okay, because I was going to say if the NCAA gets involved, we're really up to date. But the NAACP got involved
Oh, yeah.
because of the racial tension going on at Hillcrest, and they said that we are urging people to vote no on the tax referendum, which the flip side of that made me go, so you're going to punish
Mm-hmm.
the very schools
Mhm.
that are going to be, like, we got some schools that are just in trash shape.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Well,
they're
and that's the problem with
like
having,
World War II looking schools.
they bought, and there's these new schools and there's no maintenance plan for them. And you just go, it's the same reason I think that I can't stand when universities accept donations from high dollar donors for a building, because the cost far outweighs what the initial donation is.
Oh, yeah.
Just on maintenance, the sheer amount of people you have to pay to clean and do all of those things. And I go, you're doing a detriment to any university that goes, yes, I'm going to accept your donation and build your building. And when it's all said and done, it's going to come out of the students' pockets, because we're going to raise tuition because we have to employ these people to clean. And that's not even including teachers. And you're just going, just the sheer maintenance and cleaning and everything else. You
Well,
go,
my question
can't stand it.
becomes, why are we relying on the government?
Absolutely.
So if I'm an administrator, and maybe they get fired for this, so I'm just talking out of my butt now.
I have no idea.
If I'm an administrator and I'm not getting the funding that I need, and I have a leaky roof, or I have a fence that's falling down and makes for a security issue, or I have, why would they not this is what I would do. I would have a parent meeting,
Well, you've seen work days.
and I would create a facilities team.
Sure.
I watched the other day, we had a work day out at the ball field, and
Yeah.
every school had them.
Sure.
All kind of people out there.
Oh, yeah.
Working, maintenance, hanging signs, weed eating, fixing whatever needed fixed, cleaning. You sit there and you have a parent meeting and you create a facilities team. So it doesn't fall on the same people, but you got all kind of massive contractors that would gladly
Oh,
do
sure.
that. You got all kind of veterans that would sit at the door.
Sure.
You know, I just go around the government.
Well, and I think we
If you're waiting on the government
on
to
on
help
a security side, like an SRO in a school does more than just sit at the door.
you. Absolutely.
I mean, like, there's no way I want to go break up a high school fight.
no,
Like, that
no.
is not in my wheelhouse, or any of the other number of issues. And then one of the things that Claire told me that they could have used, that this would have helped, was mental health issues, that they could have a mental health counselor on campus for when kids are going through all those struggles.
Well, what does a counselor do
They help kids.
with
mean?
mental health issues?
Sure.
So why do we need another? Like you're talking about hiring.
You're
another-
saying, right, this would be specifically for.
specifically for okay.
So a counselor, yes, they
I
can
got
help,
you.
but they're more there to help you get ready for the next stage of
Education
life.
counselor.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. Life counselor type thing. You're talking about a
This would be specifically
designated. Basically, you're putting a psychologist in there.
for. Well, and you go kids who are, parents are starting to get divorced, or the amount of things that kids see nowadays is scary.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the amount, any of those who have adopted kids, the things that they have seen is scary, and these are ways that they could have been helped. But it is what it is.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Bunny says our senator is Gerald Allen. Well,
Sure.
I would encourage everybody to email Mr. Allen and
Yep.
voice your displeasure with the lack of ability to spend the funds that they can't for some reason spend on education that's in an education budget. But all of that to say, it leads me to my last question, which we absolutely do not have time for. And I want to pick this back up next week because you're not a big politics guy and you don't wade into politics a lot.
I try not to.
You and I talk about it because I enjoy talking about it, and you kind of allow me to do that. But this Gary Neal article says, stay away from politics.
Sure.
Right? He said the 4 things you should not be talking about from the pulpit, and one of them is politics. Number 1. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that pastors should be quiet? Because he's saying
Well, I think
that's not the case, but America was founded by pastors who.
I think that should you talk politics from the pulpit? Yes. Should you talk why?
Should you lend your voice into political discussions like.
I think there is.
Because it's fresh, like this vote.
I think again, talking politics from stage, from the pulpit, yeah, I do. Do I think you should come out and go, as the pastor of the Word Community Church, we should support whoever it may be? I don't know if I would say you should do that.
No, like
But I go-
you shouldn't throw your weight behind a candidate.
Right. I think,
But what about political issues?
well, yeah, everything's a political issue at this point, so how do you not talk about it?
Well,
How do you not talk about how, the LGBTQ plus minus whatever it is at this point, and gender dysphoria and those things, and I look at it and I go, this has become a political issue, when realistically it's a image issue, and we should be more focusing on how you can be, like, you were created in the image of God, and you should be resounding in the fact that you're a child of Christ, and you just go, how do you not talk politics about that and go, here's what's being thrown out, so here's what's being thrown out, here's the truth. Like,
do you feel like, and this will be my last question, do you feel like that one of the tools that the enemy has used, and the religious elite for that matter, which are used by the enemy, if you ask me, has blurred that line to say we shouldn't be wading into politics, but it's not a political issue. LGBTQ
think-
stuff to me is not a political issue. That's a moral.
That's what I'm saying. It's become a
Biblical
political
issue.
It's become a political issue, and it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. It's
So
a
how do you
biblical
how do you not talk about politics?
Exactly. I think most political issues are moral issues in today's culture.
Absolutely.
Probably not in the 70s or 80s.
Sure.
Maybe it was, but I
Probably a
believe
few
more
things.
so now. Political issues that defy Scripture
I mean, just talk
have
about
to be talked about.
absolutely, 100%.
And his statement in this article was like, "Well, you're gonna offend half the congregation
I don't know if it's an offense or if it's
if you're
I've never-
speaking truth of Scripture,
absolutely,
and you can point to it to Scripture,
absolutely.
and Scripture is offensive.
It can be, sure.
It's that truth grace thing that I
It-
touched on.
There's been many a times I've read, and I'm like,
Well, I'll tell you next week, not this week. This week we're talking
Yep.
about God just wants you to be happy, which is the urban legend, and
Sure.
that God delights in our happiness, as any parent
Yep.
would want their kid to be happy, but that's not his foremost,
Yep.
priority. And the word "just" in that is what throws it for a major loop. But after we talk about happiness this week, my urban legend next week is Jesus did not come to bring peace. The urban legend is Jesus came to bring peace, and all Christians should just be pacifists and
Sure.
just go along to get along. And that has,
Because-
in my opinion,
because you don't read. We were just reading this out of Romans, and it was said, and people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't hate," and it literally, the scripture goes, "Hate what is evil."
yeah, God hates.
Yeah,
There's righteous hate,
Mm-hmm.
but people like to nitpick and cherry pick and twist to form their own. But
well, I think that's the one thing you were talking about, the enemy, and I think the only thing the enemy is really good at is questions.
yeah,
I mean, you see him; he questioned Jesus,
Mhm.
and I think that's all he's good at.
yeah,
And I think he uses questions in a way that makes people question their faith.
yep,
Because faith is hard. And I think they question the way, did I read it that way? Did he mean it that way? Did he? All he's good at is asking questions.
creates doubt, which creates confusion.
It's the only thing the enemy's good at is questions.
I love that.
That's it.
I love that. I am going to go off on the Christians should be pacifist and the Bible should be go along to get along. It'll be
Sure.
a fun one for me.
Well, there's the grace side. There's lots about love.
Lots about love.
Lots about
Easy,
love.
easy. We're
Yeah.
done. It's
That's
great.
it.
Good conversation. I enjoyed that. Next week we're going to continue the conversation. So when I walk in next Wednesday and ask you what was
Yep.
it we were going to
Yep.
talk about,
You should probably write this down.
should Christian leaders wade into politics? That's what I want to know. Should they lend their voice to politics?
Done.
All right.
All right.
And I will come with a
And don't forget tonight, fuel as well. Groups. Actually, next week.
Valentine meal tonight.
Actually, next week we won't be meeting. That's the 22nd.
Why will we not be meeting?
I won't be here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
won't be here.
Yeah, and I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I thought I was thinking about who I could bring on.
Yeah.
And
Well-
if I come up with somebody creative, probably, but probably not.
Well, you got to have somebody who will run your computer for you. So
Yeah, so we will
could-
skip a week. And
We'll take a planned break. Yeah.
All right. Love
2
y'all.
weeks.
See you tonight.
Bye bye.